3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, granitegrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from granitegrok.com.
Grok Talk.
Welcome back to Grok Talk. Thanks again to everybody. Ron Moore was joining us talking about weather. Just in case you missed that segment, it's going to be colder than usual until well into May. Thank you very much. And I'm just like, my wife was asking me about plants. She says, we got to get the seedlings started. You know, we got to be able to get the vegetables going, and we'll be able to. I'm like, I'm going to have to build a greenhouse because that is the only way anything is going to grow this summer. I just have this horrible feeling it's going to be cold and miserable like it was a couple of years ago, and we had these tiny little tomato plants, and it was awful. Anyway, Ed Nail, of course, was with us to talk about vote fraud in Dover. We had Phil Kirpin from American Commitment on, and a little bit actually he's here already. Mark Osborne from Dairy is with us, but we want to talk to Kimberly Morin, our pit bull. Can I call you that, Kimberly? Pit bull? You there? Are you there?
I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I can't hear you.
I can hear you now. Oh, hold on. How about that?
Can you hear us now?
Now I can hear you.
Okay. Buttons. There's just too many buttons. Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Easter weekend.
Yeah, so Steve was saying, can we call you our pit bull? I think our chief troublemaker may be the better phrase, but boy, oh boy, when politicians' malfeasance rises to greater heights than usual, you certainly have a means of bringing them down a peg or two.
You know, I just don't have to like people who do bad things.
All right, so we wanted to start with the Balsams Bailout. I know that, well, I'm sure we'll talk about a whole bunch of things, but why don't you give people a short overview of what that's all about? So,
excuse me, clearly there has been a kind of a bunch of backroom deals going on because a developer wants to reopen the Balsams, which is up in North Cupcake, but it's a beautiful, beautiful resort that's been around for years in New Hampshire. It's actually historical, but they fell short. The developer fell short. He wanted, at first it was $100 million he needed to build it. Then it moved up to $143 million, but he can't quite get that last $28 million from private investors. So I believe it's Sticksville Notch that wants to change from an unincorporated place to have specific powers in order for them to, hang on, I'm trying to give you the exact language, so that they can have the authority, powers, duties, and responsibilities, so that they can, oh my God, sorry. I was up till 4:15 watching Firefly.
I was up for no reason, just so, you know.
It's permitting, basically, they will be permitted to establish tax increment financing districts in that place, in Sticksville Notch, so that they can, after they do that, then they'll be able to help finance the Balsams project with sort of the taxpayers of all of New Hampshire co-signing a $28 million loan. And, you know, obviously this is crony capitalism. The government should never be involved in the private sector, you know, picking winners or losers ever. But there's all kinds of background information on these people, and that's where it kind of lies the problem. Why are you giving this person $28 million to build something up that they can't get from the private sector? You know what I mean? Like, why is the government going to step in and give them money that they can't get from the private sector? Doesn't that tell you about what's going on, you know, about the development that maybe people don't all think it's going to actually work?
Well, it's not a solar project or anything, so, you know, that's a good question. I mean, if they were going to say, well, the Balsams is going to be a bastion of New Hampshire green energy, they'd be throwing money at it like there's no tomorrow. But so there's a bill for this, right? Is it HB 30?
It's SB 30, and SB 30. Yeah, SB 30 went to one committee first in the Senate, who turned it into a study commission. Because basically the bill doesn't say we're going to co-sign $28 million for you. The bill is making it so that a county with unincorporated areas can establish the tax increment financing districts. So, this is just one area that would do it. Then other areas that are unincorporated could sign up to have the same ability. Mm-hmm. And are they going to all be putting their hands out, with the government?
Oh, yeah.
It's really the taxpayers.
Right.
So, it sounds, it's a little bit more complicated than it sounds. The bill is literally just one page, so it's pretty straightforward. But the background of it is that they're doing this specifically to be able to help these developers of the Balsams get $28 million that the taxpayers will be on the hook for.
So in other words, by creating effectively a tax and financing district, then Dixville Notch can claim that it will receive income from this, and therefore it can commit bonds with this as the collateral. Is that with that taxing power as collateral? Is that correct?
Pretty much, yeah. Yep, exactly, because they'll be able to get, there's this, I was doing some research, and there's a certain way that they get the tax revenue from the project once they can get it, and they get an X amount of dollars of it. So I have to try to explain that in easier terms for people to understand, because I have to write about this. Mm-hmm. Because this is coming up in the House next Tuesday, April 14th, to be a committee hearing.
Why wouldn't they just build the project incrementally, and restore it in sections, and let the tourist revenue finance the rest?
Okay, so here's what happened. Two guys, and I can't remember their names exactly, DeGrasse and another guy, and I apologize because I was supposed to do more. I've been doing research, but I was supposed to set it all up nicely last night. But at 6:30, I threw my hands up in the air after having such a busy week and said, "We're watching Firefly." So
yeah, love that show.
I've never ever done that before. Just watched all these series in a row. So
yeah, it's only like 13 episodes. So yeah. I have it. I watch it about every year. Anyway, I'm sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I'm a little, But so what happened is these two guys bought it several years ago, and they were local guys that bought it. And what they did was they said they were going to renovate it, make it up to date. But what they did was when they bought it, they closed it down instead of keeping it open while they renovated. It's a huge place. You could keep parts of it open and have others being renovated, at least bringing in a revenue stream. But they decided to close it down. So they weren't bringing in any revenue for it. And then they couldn't get the kind of financing they wanted. So they ended up stripping the place of everything and selling it. And they won't even tell people what they sold or how much they got for it.
Uh-huh. So
yeah, there's transparency.
They were just trying to, they got into it, clearly had an idea, realized it wasn't going to work, so they just started, strip mining the property for whatever money they could get.
So if they stripped it and sold it, then I guess the state or the town is trying to deal with the new owners. Is that correct?
They did not sell it. They're part of this whole thing. They're part of being in on this project is their own ownership of the building. They're not putting up $1. They're not putting up a dime. So they have that ownership. Then they got together with Les Otten, who is a developer, and I'll go into him in a second, in the 90s. He's a multimillionaire, developer. He's put up $1 million. So these guys, the other guys that stripped the whole place, the original owners, put up just the building, and Les Otten put up just $1 million. And they got other private investors from other places to put in the rest of the money, but they came up short, and now they're looking to, Jeff Woodburn is a senator up there who's pushing this. They're looking for the taxpayers to say, come on, co-sign here, like mommy and daddy co-signing your first car loan, that kind of thing. And the thing is, Les Otten, he is a guy from the 90s who owned the American Skiing Company, and he did all kinds of ski resorts in New Hampshire and Maine, and almost went bankrupt in the 90s.
Correct.
Doing it.
Yep.
So, and he hasn't even finished on promises that he made with those original ski resorts. So, that tells you something right there. And there's another thing that I found, too, that when they were trying to get financing for Balsams, apparently they were looking for $30 million, and I don't know if this is the exact same $30 million. It's a little bit, I forget the word. It's not. I don't think it's coincidence that this is $30 million and they're looking for 28. And the owners right now are Dan Hebert and Dan DeGette. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but so they tried to get an application for. They tried to get investors, and they're exploring the government's EB-5 program, which is green cards. It's a program they get that offers green cards to a foreign investor and immediate families. Mm-hmm. So, if you give us $500,000, we'll give you a green card, and you and your family green cards, and you can come here and work. And they were denied that. People didn't want to do it. Mm-hmm. They were looking for investors to do that, and that obviously didn't happen. So the whole thing is, sorry guys, the whole thing is a huge boondoggle. There's been all kinds of backroom, this is obviously there's been all kinds of backroom deals going on that we don't know about because it's been completely intransparent. But then the Senate, it looked like the Senate wasn't going to pass this out of the committee as an actual bill to make them Dixville Notch be able to change to be a financing district. At first, it's going to be a study commission. And hey, study commission is great. Check into it, see if it really is useful, or it would not cause any issues. But somebody got to somebody, and last minute, Jeannie Forrester put up an amendment to make it go forward, and it did.
So has the Senate actually passed this and sent it down to the House?
Yes, it's in the House on Tuesday. I will be there testifying against it.
Okay. So I have to ask, since they've, A, come up short, and since, B, the folks who own the now shell of the former resort stripped out the buildings and somehow sold some of the equipment, furnishings, whatever that they stripped, how do we find out how much money they got from what they stripped? In other words, what have they cashed out here, and does it by any chance come anywhere close to the amount of money they're now trying to get from us?
They won't tell us.
There's got to be an auction or other record here. That stuff doesn't just...
They just sold it to a guy with a truck.
No, not that kind of quantity.
I don't know.
Big truck.
I don't know how to find that information. I know other people have. They have been asked, do you have a list? Obviously you would have a list of the inventory of the place and what you sold and how much you sold it for, and they will not provide that. But $28 million from us, but they won't provide a list of what they got from when they stripped the place instead of renovating it.
And does anybody have any clue how much money this place could be worth to the area? I mean, has anybody even tried to guess that it would actually make money?
Okay. I think the guys who bought it, Hebert and DeGuest, actually bought it for like $2.5 million or $2.3 million. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's clearly probably worth way more than that. They got it.
Well, it's beautiful. It's beautiful up there.
Yeah, and so the ultimate goal of being totally open with all these, big, huge ideas and what they want to do is going to cost like $320 million. I saw. Mm-hmm. Eventually, not at first. That's moving on and on and on and on. But this is just. There's this too much backroom crony capitalism. I'll pat your back, you pat my back type of things going on in New Hampshire. Should absolutely not be involved in this. We were involved in something like this in the 90s, and I have to find out the historical details on it. And we were on the hook for $20 million, and it failed.
I was going to say, I mean, if it's really such a great deal, why isn't there a bank willing to put up the money? What do they have to go to the state for?
Well, or another private investor. That's the thing. If this was such a great idea, you would have people, knocking down your door saying, "I'll give you money here. Take my money."
Well, that tells you something. It either tells you something about the people that currently own it and are planning to develop it, that maybe they can't scare up the whole amount because the lenders want them to put some more of their own skin in the game as a safeguard, or it tells you that the deal's just not a good deal, and the place isn't going to generate enough revenue. The state's actually better protected than most, because if it actually becomes any kind of resort with any kind of people eating meals and staying in rooms, voila, the room and meals taxes kick in, and at least the state gets something back. But the nearest thing that this resembles is the old sports stadium complex that cities get themselves into, where they convince themselves they're going to get all sorts of jobs and revenue, and the city gets into putting up or co-signing the bonds for the expensive new stadium, and they never see their money back. It never is. It's a boondoggle. It's a gift to the developers, or it's a gift to the sports team, or in some cases, it's appeasing the sports team to prevent them from leaving, but they eventually leave anyway.
Hang on for 60 seconds, Kimberly. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.